now, MindTitan. What do you have against FeelingStream?
Yeah, I was not aware of the pitching competition, but I'll give it a go. So basically, what does MindTitan do? So it's a bit different. So we do both custom and solutions, and we also have, let's say, a set of standard solutions, and those standard solutions are connected to automating the customer service. So if, for example, FeelingStream searches for all sort of things, we just, think like, okay, that's also nice. That's an additional feature, but we just try to automate the conversations, whether they are chat or call, as much as possible, basically. So since it was, let's say, startup corporate presentation or so, then just showing, we work all over the world with all sort of different sectors, with both private and public sector. I put more like Estonian logos here for you to recognize, but for example, Saudi Arabia or Japan or whatever. And since it is, a corporate and an advice-giving session, then I just wanted to share that if you really want to build all sort of, useful AI applications in a corporate, then very often, you can put the out-of-the-box model there, but you have to go custom as well, and you have to integrate it with all sort of stuff. So for that, I'll just share our track record in Elisa, who is definitely our greatest partner. We've done very cool stuff together, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And just quickly going over them, yes, these chatbots and contact prevention and AI voice IVR, real contact reason, basically everything besides the CX index, so customer experience index, and facial biometrics and next best offer. They are things that are not connected to customer service, and others are things that are connected to customer service automation one way or another, or at least understanding the quality of it. And the point is, like, if you are building stuff for corporates, these things work together. You can get great connections between them. You can make them empower each other. So for example, when we started with, for example, a chatbot, then actually the same knowledge is also being used by the calls as well, whether it's by representatives or maybe at some point also fully automatically. So yeah, all sort of cool stuff. I guess you got some sort of an overview of what we do.
Thank you, Kristjan. So Lauri, you can join us. You don't need to be there because we're going to have the discussion panel right now. Okay, guys, thank you for the quick insight. And I would like to remind you that the Slido is still open. And if you want to direct any questions to Lauri or Kristjan, then you can do that. I'm following that all the time and then asking the questions if we have time for that. But maybe let's start from the beginning, as we need to discuss the matter, how easy it's really to incorporate with big corporations and how to have them as customers. Then from the beginning, I would like to ask, you both started off as traditional startups. You had the MVP ready, you had some hypotheses, you wanted to test that out in the real market conditions. Was it easy to get the first customer, or how ready was your technology and product if you already started to onboard the customers or launching the pilot projects together with corporates? Lauri, maybe you can start elaborating on that.
A couple of words about the context. We started actually 5 years ago. And if you think back 5 years, what's the situation of machine learning and AI, then I'm sad to actually see and look back those tools that we have on day number one. But on a startup, you always try to make, this is what always, you try to make a small effort as possible in order to have the MVP. And you test it out. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't deliver the value or the value that the corporate is actually expecting. Or there's other things that even your technology works, then the perception is not mature. You know, if I would tell you 5 years ago that, hey, let's rent a scooter from the street, you would say, oh, why should I do that? But now we are all that kind of used to do that. So also the mindset and the readiness to use some tools is actually changing. So,
but basically the product itself, like if you initiated first pilot, it wasn't like completely ready. You just tested that, right, with the corporate?
Sure, we started with that kind of hacked thing, which you always do. But soon it was a pretty that kind of enterprise ready, because our focus was to sell real that kind of product to enterprises. And if you get some kind of security testing requirements, you need to adopt them, you need to fulfill them.
Okay, what about MindTitan? How was the starting point for you?
So for us it was a bit different, I would say. At first we did like a totally different thing, which was like face comparison kind of stuff and age recognition. So okay, it was cool, it worked, but nobody really wants to pay for it. So that was quite sad. And after that, I guess we took, I would say, a different approach. We didn't build first. We, let's say, talked first. First, try to understand what's the problem about, and then try to build on top of that. So yes, if you're doing for like B2C, I totally see like building. Let's see who buy it. Can we actually get some traction, etc., etc. But in B2B, I think you should first start with having a couple of conversations, trying to understand what it's about. Obviously, on day one, you're not gonna have like fully working solutions, but then you have to again listen to the customer, see like what's the feedback you're getting, what feature requests are you gonna accept, and which ones are you gonna ignore, because you see, okay, you ask for it, but like why? Like, do you actually need it? Maybe we should solve it another way. So yeah, I think it's more like that, because you can, we're in the field of AI, so you can do a lot of cool stuff, but what are you gonna do with it after it is in some dashboard or in some report? Is that the end goal, or are you actually gonna do something after that?
So basically we can agree that the very minute you went to the first customer, you didn't have the product ready, right?
No.
Okay, cool. Because as I have been working with a couple of corporates, and I wanted to like understand what are their main obstacles, why they are not like collaborating with startups, and then the main issue that they bring out is that the companies are not ready for that. The products, they lack functionality, they are not really bringing the results in, and it's very hard to conduct like customer and client relationships on top of that. So how did you like get things going? Like, did you go through a lot of different companies that might find your solution useful, and ended up with the one that wanted to initiate the pilot? And how did you really do that? Like, was it hard to get the commitment for the corporate that yes, I want to like run the pilot with you, I want to do the joint development with you, and I want to make your product better?
So for us, it was definitely I guess us being believable and a bit of luck, because let's say our success is definitely due to the first big partnership with Elisa, which is still ongoing, and that was through IOYAST, which we took part in. So if there are some startups here, then I definitely recommend. There's stuff to learn from there. But yeah.
What about you, Lauri?
In our case, we actually, one of our co-founders was a deep insider of the concrete use case, how to manage the customer experience. And then our vision was that taking this experience, we will put some automation on top of that, some NLP and natural language processing and that kind of stuff. And then we believe that actually sharing the technology or using the technology and sharing the experience is actually going to create the business. Often was not about the technology, but what's the impact, and how to convince that doing that kind of analytics will really help to improve the companies. And we often find out, for example, this net promoter score. Companies are asking this. They believe that it works. At the end of the day, we didn't find that too many of them actually using it seriously, because it's really difficult to find out what is the quality of a service by some of the samples. And therefore, we made the third term, the steps in order to actually find out the ways we could do it better.
Okay, but coming back to the sales cycle, like we have one question from the audience as well related to that. Like corporates are pretty attractive customers, right? Everybody wants to like approach them in terms of startups, and they want to like push their products and have the customer relationship set up. But in your case, like, can you elaborate more on the sales cycle? Like how long time did it really take to gain the trust, to reach the agreement, and really to start piloting together with the corporate? Lauri?
With some of the companies, we got it like 6 months. With some of the companies, we haven't succeeded yet. So it could be also 5 years. But, from looking from the future, actually, there are some secrets that the startups or that type of companies that we are actually are gaining. Because we have a cross-industry experience. And that's often something that the corporates don't have. You don't know how your competitors are doing in details, but we know. And actually, if you cooperate with us, you would be able to actually exceed your development. So this was one of the elements that actually helped us to squeeze the sales cycles. But every case is different. Some companies driven by a business side, what is the impact, how we can use that to show me the value. On the other companies like IT driven. Okay, what is the AI do you use? Do you use this or that modeling techniques? So it's always, you need to adopt. You need to find the language that actually is heard by the corporate customer. And it's about the trust. You need to build that.
Okay, Kristjan, what about you?
Yeah, the sales cycle length is definitely varying, as Lauri said as well. So, for example, when I think about 2 last deals, then one of them with still a significant corporation, it took 2 months to get the pilot going, etc., etc. But that was also due to the fact that they had actually done quite a lot of good pre-work. We already had the person who was actually the right person, etc., etc. They were willing to, admit, okay, this thing here is actually like rotting really bad, and that's what we want to fix. So you don't often get that. While the second deal, I think we spoke in November 2016, and we started in August, this month. So obviously we didn't spend all that time doing the sales, but they really took their time. So it's very varying. But obviously, I think the most important thing is actually to find the right person who is actually willing to admit, okay, this is my issue. Is this the right solution? And actually discuss what is the right solution, because, sorry, I do have to apologize. Because what happens very often is that, they have some feature list which they have gotten from somebody with whom they unfortunately spoke before us. Obviously it depends on the point of view. But then they're stuck with these features, and when you try to ask from them hey, why are you even requesting this? Then there isn't a really good reply, because they are focused that, okay, I need this, but yeah, this is the fact that, okay, there needs to be trust. They need to explain to you what is it that they actually need and what is the actual issue about. So yeah, it's a very complex sale.
So the customer acquisition cost is high, potentially, and the lifetime value is high as well, because it's really hard to opt out from the solutions if you have already implemented, in your case at least, as far as I can see, right?
Sure. I think Mart was mentioning this, that large corporates don't want to fail, so they select long. But if they select it, it will be there for a while. And therefore, replacing some of your service component in the corporate infrastructure, especially for banks or telecoms, this is not the short story. So yes, the sales cycle is long, but if you have something new to offer, which we believe we have, then actually it comes more and more easy to actually onboard, because they adopt to your philosophy. And this is what we see actually helps us. 15 years back, none of the websites had any statistics. Now you put up the new Tehnopol website and you do it without Google Analytics or any analytics. The people will tell you, how can you do that?
You're just brave. Hope for the best.
But so the attitude, the way we think actually changes. And it supports that we should know in our corporate positions more and more in details how we actually do. And therefore the need for that kind of transparency and that, okay, please.
Yeah, but can you enclose, how did you set up the first corporations? I mean, the product was not ready, the customer was willing to go or move forward with you. Were the first customers actually paying customers, or you considered them as partners in product development, and the money came in in later stages? Or how did the first contracts look for you in that perspective?
I think I'm sensing that we might actually have the similar background. We actually we got the first 2 customers through the hackathons. Just go there, organized hackathon, show yourself, show what you can do, talk to the people, showcase them what you can do, either Ajujaht or whatever the hackathon is. But this is, Telia, one of our first customers, actually organized in September 2015 a hackathon for Wunk, and it was the way on those days actually to be on their radar, so to say. Later we specifically applied to Accelerator with Nordea in Finland, and if they feel and see the team, so they're not actually just buying the technology, but they're also buying like a team. They want to see the commitment, and we were actually the only one who got the production data during the hackathon. None of any other teams actually got that.
Kristjan, what about you? Paying customers, freemium customers, joint development partners?
So yeah, paying customers. That's how it has succeeded for us. We have done some free stuff, but to be honest, in those cases, also the commitment from the corporate or whoever customer side is also so much lower that it's even kind of bad. So okay, you don't have to charge the full amount, but at least charge something, because we have seen these cases where you do the pilot, you really put in your effort, and then they see okay, they're not even putting their effort into testing it. So let's say for corporates, my advice is that okay, if you have actually decided to do a pilot with somebody, then really put your give your full support, because it's gonna be tough, especially if you're doing these complex solutions like these AI solutions, where you need to get accesses to data, you need to actually talk to people who know what this is about. If you don't get these accesses, then you might spend an eternity in darkness, and nobody's happy with the results. These things can happen. So yeah.
Okay, but if you started working with the corporates and you really implemented the solutions and started to run the pilots, I guess in both of your cases, the commitment from the corporate should be quite massive. There should be a lot of people involved, and then you need to get access to the data. It's legally maybe complicated. How did it work out for you? Was it hard to get the commitment, the full commitment from the corporate, or as soon as the sales cycle was over, it was really easy to work together with the corporate?
This totally depends on the culture. So, there are corporations or startups or whomever. When you start, full commitment, everybody's on board. When you need something, they ask for it. But there's always if there's corporate, then very often there are also some processes, which at some point you're like, okay, I guess we can't really do anything about. For example, needs to get an access to one place. VPN access, if anybody's interested. And we couldn't get it, because to get it, we needed their corporate email. And to get that, we needed some code. And to get that code, there needs to be a meeting. And that meeting happens once a month. And we knew everybody who would be at that meeting. And they were like, yeah, at that meeting, we're gonna say yes, and you're gonna get the code. But they couldn't give me the code 2 weeks. I had to wait for 2 weeks for the meeting to happen with the same people who was just go there, say yes, and then the process happened. But the processes are there for a reason, and I do understand that. But they're still supportive. So yeah. But yes, there are also corporations where everybody has this mindset. Okay, if it's not my problem, I'm not going to deal with it. And then it's really, really tough. But hopefully, at least if there's a good contact person for you, they can still pull through, and you'll get all you need.
Lauri, what about you? How was the implementation? The corporates were all hands, and then they wanted to work with you, and you didn't have any problems in that area?
Sure, we had. We have had very few cases where there is a straightforward thing. Typical behavior is that you have a deal with business side, they agree with you something, and then you will have another same story with IT guys. What's the access? What's the data? How you clean it? How you remove the personal data? What's the technology you have? And so on. Then they want to audit you. So if you are building a startup which is with a focus for providing the service and like a product as a service for an enterprise, you need to be ready that the enterprises will do all their corporate IT stuff also with you. So you need to have a documentation, you need to have a capability for allowing them for the auditing and so forth. So, and that has been a challenge, but when we passed, the first case, we're lucky to be passing all to the next ones. So, and this actually creates a trust. If you really showcase for the IT guys that your stuff works, and it's not, breaking every 30 minutes, but it really works, then they actually start to trust you, and they start to help you also to go through your existing or their existing organization. So I think the most important thing here is a trust. You need to build the trust. If you have it, you are lucky to have the engagement.
Okay, but one of the obstacles I have encountered is that normally the startup companies have pretty straightforward business model. They have very fixed product and expansion plans. And the corporates, if they enter the cooperation with a startup, they want to have customizations. They want to have different new functionalities in terms of product. But the startup companies are not very reluctant to do that, because they have the investment on board. The investors request the company to move forward really quickly, but working with one corporate might slow you down a bit. You need to make customization in the product development areas, and you need to customize. Was that one of the obstacles for you as well, or onboarding the new customer, it requires some work from your side as well?
Actually, when we launched the company, we decided that we will have one code base. So only one version. All the customization should be available over the configuration or the user interface. And we're telling to the corporates that we are actually we have a complete platform, and we are constantly enhancing that based on requests from you and from your possible competitors or other enterprises that we serve. And actually, this is a new way meeting the expectations, because such a way the corporates will also receive the functionality that they never purchased or never requested, but is actually valuable for the business case. But this is only available if you have one single product. If you have multiple items, then you cannot do that. But that's what we provide. We have one single product that solves one single use case, but multiple outcomes.
Okay, Kristjan, customizing your core product, was it obstacle for you? Like, could you bend in terms of the needs of the corporate, or you didn't need to do that?
So basically, when a feature request comes in, then it's always a decision like, okay, is this useful for everybody or not? And then you need to basically decide. So mostly, fortunately, the feature requests are good, and we accept them, and then it becomes an integral part of it. But yeah, I guess with us it has been a bit different. Like sometimes we have seen so weird requests that no way we're gonna do this custom. So it has happened, but it's not like a it's not like I don't know. It's a small percentage, I would say. But yeah, it does happen. I guess it depends like how far do you go? Like how complex is it? How many integrations do you need to make? I mean, like for example, if there is if they have built their own CRM, for example, I mean, I have to make a custom, integration for that. I mean, it's really not possible any other way. So yeah, it does happen, and it's case by case. But obviously, you try to avoid it whenever possible. But yeah, that's life.
Okay, cool. So you both have worked with non-corporates as well, right? You have like some startup companies using your solution, as I saw. Like, can you bring out the main core differences between like working together with a corporate and say some startup or SME or scale-up company that you implement the software and solution together with?
I guess it's a difference of how much experimentation is allowed. So when you work with startups, then basically, I mean, obviously it's different case by case as well. But let's say there's a lot more experimentation. The whole startup itself might be an experiment. So yeah, it's you have more free hands, let's say. With corporates, it depends. Like if it's, in my opinion, a good corporate, then up to some point they are willing to experiment as well, to test things out that they didn't have in plan at first. But you talk to them, you both kind of feel, okay, this is a good idea, and you test it out. But obviously it also happens that sometimes it's like, okay, no, sorry, this is not planned, and we're not gonna do it, etc., etc. Okay, it's a good idea. I think in 2022 we'll get to that, and you're like, I know it's kind of slow for me. So it does happen.
So more agile approach on development and implementation, right?
I mean, yeah, but don't get me wrong. Like, if it's a good corporation, then things can happen just as fast as in a startup. So yeah, it depends. Like, not all of it will happen as fast, but I know corporations are good, so I like them.
Okay, Lauri, what about you? Have you worked with non-corporates as well, and are there any differences?
Actually, our product is for large corporates, so we don't have any that kind of startup users as our product. We could, but it has not been on the radar. So I would say that the difference is in the wavelength of the breathing. So startups do like, and the corporates are, and this is either it's about how quickly you adopt to a new technology, how quickly or rapidly you do the decisioning. And we have learned that even if we do like this, we just need to do it, but wait until our corporate customers will do their cycle. And there is no need to be frustrated if something is not happening on the same speed as you would like. Just relax. They will come back, because fundamentally the thing that we do is important for them. They want to actually experiment, they want to feel, they want to use the value out of that. There is no way out for them. And therefore, just give them time, they will do that. And therefore, if we do like too fast, just do it with other customers, nothing else. Just spend your time somewhere else, just not frustratedly waiting.
Okay. So let's move on with the recommendations. Like, you are pretty experienced already. The list of customers that you presented, it's astonishing. And Lauri, we discussed that there are like only a couple of corporates that you haven't been working with, right, in this region. So what could be like your key recommendations for one startup company that just completed its MVP and now they wanted to enter the cooperation with some corporate in order to validate, test, get the pilots going, get the first customer? So what could be like your, I don't know, 3 key recommendations for such a company?
First of all, I disagree with you that we have covered all the companies. Not at all, not at all. But if you ask me what's the advice for my own kids, for example, what they should do, the corporates are actually a good target group. They are there, as Mart was saying, the mentality is to keep the existing revenues or the business case what they have. In order to be successful with corporates, you really need to have actual their benefit business case for them. So actually this will be really quickly clear that is your product providing some kind of value or not. And if it's seen that it doesn't, then you cannot succeed. Whatever technology you have, whatever data science you have, if there is no business case, you are not on the table. But on the other hand, keep going. The things that are not important today might come important for tomorrow. And if you start building this relationship, this is something that enables you to be on their radar. That, hey, you know the guys, they will come back because you have that kind of pivoted the way you think. Sure, look what is happening on the global market. Large corporates are mostly copycats. They do what others have done. And there are only rare ones that are doing something that is fully new. So everything that is not in place here, but in place in States, will have a high potential to be here also in place. So open your eyes and actually try to think about realistic business cases. Because if you have it, it's simple. There's money on the table.
Okay, clear. Kristjan, what about you? What are your recommendations for the fresh startup founder who wants to enter the corporation?
So I do agree with what Lauri said. Nothing wrong with that. I will maybe just add that in the end, yes, they are like big corporations, and you might get the feel like, okay, there's some magical committee coming together and deciding something. So that's, I think, only true in part. In the end, you're still, selling to people, and they need to, understand what it's about. And of course, at some point, some committee indeed will probably come together and decide, like, are you actually making, the right decision? Asking some let's say, sanity check questions, like, are you on the right path? So yeah. Just remember that part, and support both during the sales part and also the execution part. So I guess it's sales and then account management, I guess you could say, because if you feel it's hard for you to sell to the corporate, then try to put yourself in their shoes and understand that it might also be very hard for them to sell it in-house, and to sell it in-house and explain to people in-house that, okay, yeah, we need to change quite a few things, and there are always going to be people objecting to things that already work, at least in their opinion. or from their perspective. So yeah, giving support both during the sales part and the actual execution part, because if you have at least done it once or twice, then you already know like what are the objections, what are the issues gonna be. So you can be there and try to deliver. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna turn the tables around and have the question from the audience. So what do you think, like what could be your recommendation for the corporation that wants to work with startups? Like what can the corporate do to make your life easier, or what they should do differently, or what they should do in addition? Do you have any insights on that, Lauri?
A difficult question, but I have one idea that I would like to share is that, and that's the true story what I have seen, and not only one company, but several. Actually, if corporates will open up a bit by themselves, their own that kind of readiness to engage with startups, it has several positive impacts. Even if you cancel the agreement after six months of engagement, then it actually challenges your own team to think about more agile, to think about new ways. Because I have been in the corporates for 10 years, and it's difficult that you have always the same people around the table. They have the same thoughts, and you have done a lot to argue with them, and always you turn up to the same position. Because IT is telling that this is impossible, and analysts are saying that it cannot be done, and whatever the reason is. But if you bring up that kind of fresh team, they will actually also challenge your colleagues that, hey, you can actually turn it to the different perspective. You can actually deliver. And this is sometimes that kind of a good way for corporates as well to actually change the internal mindset. Because now you as a business leader, you can tell that, Kristjan was able to deliver. Why our team cannot do that? What's wrong with us? He can, but you cannot. And this is actually helps to boost the internal mindset. That if somebody is showcasing, and often you cannot have it because you don't engage with startups and your IT team doesn't want to have it because they are scared about their business will be taken out. So be open-minded, provide that kind of chances for yourselves to engage. Be open to say that it's an experiment. We might end up, after 6 months not doing anything, but it will change in a positive direction your own approach, your own team capabilities.
Kristjan, we're going to have the final comment from you as well. So recommendation for the corporates.
Thank you. So in addition to that, a good point. I would say that the thing that I mentioned before, that once you have indeed decided to go ahead, then really go ahead. Give your full support, and also again in that sense about people. So make sure that you actually have the right team to support. So probably somebody from business side who actually really deeply understands what this issue is about. Because if you don't understand that, then for a very long time you might solve like a totally wrong thing. Then technical support, that somebody would actually be the point of contact for solving the technical issues. And let's say a special role that for example in Elisa we have developed together or whatever, is like a person who is like a translator between everybody, because AI is still like a bit like a weird topic, and people have sometimes weird expectations about it. So somebody who is basically a translator between, let's say, these AI people and this business side and IT side, and sometimes also acts as some sort of a filter, because sometimes there are requests coming and like, hey, can we do this, or and then that person might immediately say like, hey, no, like this is let's use like regular software development, like let's not go crazy here, it's a different issue. So yeah, I would say giving it the support and putting together the right team.
Okay, thank you guys. So we need to wrap it up from here. So big applause for Lauri and Kristjan. And guys, just to like, it made sense for you to come here physically as well, like gifts for you. They are hidden back here. But nevertheless, thank you again.